Today we're going to be stepping away from our normal forte of military kits, and we're going to be taking a look at a civil aviation kit, specifically Minicraft's 1/44th scale 747 kit in PSA markings. Now, a little bit of background. PSA, or Pacific Southwest, was a airline that was based in San Diego, as I'll let you know, sort of my hometown-ish. And now they operated for a number of years before unfortunately going out of business in the late 80s, due in large part to one of their planes being hijacked and a very, very serious crash. Obviously, those of you who live in the San Diego area know about it, so I won't linger on that. But I got this mainly because it is a bit of a hometown kit, and so I really wanted to obviously share it with you guys today. One big draw for them that really set them apart was obviously on all of their aircraft it had a smiley face. So let's open up and see how this kit is. Now, one thing I usually don't comment on that often, but in this case, the box art is really quite nice. Let me see if I can get this fully in frame. Yeah, I really like when manufacturers do really nice box art, just because I like to keep at very least the box lids as they do. Usually have halfway decent to something like this, which is almost basically you could use it as a poster. I mean, so that's a little nice extra sort of selling point that don't typically see. So right off the bat, you can get a pretty good, decent sense of the scale of the aircraft just by looking at the main fuselage halves, and just by doing a little bit of dry fitting. And I'm going to try to do this fairly quickly on camera. Is you can see they do have a pretty good fit. Exception being here in the nose area, there is a little bit of a edge here that'll need to be sanded down, but otherwise it's it's a decent fit. There obviously you need to do a little bit of gimming just to make sure they align properly when you're gluing them together. But I digress. Next up we have our nacelle parts, which I would say is arguably the most complicated part of this kit, as surprisingly it's fairly straightforward build. But as I said, here is probably where you need to spend a fair amount of time just making sure you do everything correctly. I'll speak a little more about that when we get into the instruction sheet. Here we have the elevators and stabilators. Again, nicely detailed. Panel lining is appropriately scaled and nice and crisp. Next up, we've got the landing gear, including the nose gear bay and the wheels landing gear. Landing gear detail could be better, though. This is one area where I would say the kit is a little disappointing, but at the same time you could easily just not place them and just go with it a in-flight display. Last up we have, or next to last, sorry, we have the wings, done in two halves. Now, this is where I was a little surprised, as I had expected the wings to be a little bit bigger, but after sort of doing a little placement next to the fuselage, it is appropriate to the scale. Given that this is 1/44 scale, it'd be nice if there was a little bit more detailing, but overall it's not that bad. It's more than passable. And last but not least is the clear part for the main cockpit. Again, there's no internal detail, so your best bet is probably to paint the windows black, and once you seal it up. Overall, it's nicely done. Not much really to say in that regard. Now moving on to the decals, these are very nicely done, all in great register. Do like that they went with the metallic, as I don't know how well this is going to show up. Actually, it's showing up halfway decent on camera. But no, it really adds a nice little touch to the kit. Make it a real nice sort of statement piece. Now, moving on to the instructions. As I said, this is a fairly simple build kit, with the exception being here in the engine nacelles, as you are going to need to spend a little time, thinking about how you're going to put them together and paint them. So just be aware of that, as that's going to be a little slower in terms of the pacing. One thing also note, since this is an overall white kit, you're going to need a lot of white paint. So your best bet is probably to start with a white primer as your base, and do your white from there. Again, as I said, there's nothing really overly complicated about this kit. It's a nice, simple, and straightforward build. You are going to need to do a bit of masking here on the wings to get this dark gray in, as they don't include that as any type of decal. You're also going to have a little bit of issue probably doing the fan decal, as it's really tiny. In fact, I don't know if this will show up too well on camera, but right here it's on the smaller side. So yeah, that is something to be aware of. Now, overall, I have to say, this was a pleasantly surprising kit. It's not complicated. It's nicely thought out and will look great. Now, another thing I want to mention about this is that, obviously, since this is technically a what-if kit, since PSA never flew the 777, since they were long gone by the time the 777 took the air, it is a bit of a what-if. So it's definitely something you want to do if you want to get something a little different in your collection. Something you don't normally see. If you're not interested in PSA, they also have, Minicraft has also done one for Eastern and for Pan Am, which I do own the Eastern version, which is basically just same kit but a different decal scheme, and am looking for the Pan Am one, but again, I digress. Overall, definitely a nice kit. If you're into civil aviation and airliners, I would definitely recommend this kit. And even not in this particular boxing, it's a great overall build up of a kit. So yeah, that was Minicraft's 1/44 scale, or excuse me, 1/144 scale 777 kit in PSA markings. So until next time.